Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Today we're talking conspiracy theories from the new movie Sort of Trust, as well as the 50th anniversary on July 20th of the Apollo moon landing. July 20th, 1969.
Big party.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right. And so today, Wendy and I are joined by our buddy Scott Marcus from whatyoghoststory.com.
Welcome, Scott.
Good to be here. I just got my tinfoil hat on, so let's do this thing.
Excellent. Looks good.
That sounds good. And to make sure we don't have any internet to the outside world going, we closed everything off.
That's right.
We're hunkered down in the basement here.
Right, hunkered down in the bomb shelter to make sure that nobody can pick up on what we're doing and then ruin our conversation.
Right.
It's already happened. Like the internet's already broken down once today.
Mm-hmm.
Right before we were going to start recording.
Yeah.
So I guess the See You on the Other Side bunker is not safe.
It's not secure. And my computer turned off. I mean, it went completely black for no reason.
Has it done that before ever?
Never has it done that before. So,
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're in
I'm
for
just saying,
a wild ride here today, I guess.
someone doesn't want you people to know about the new movie with Mark Maron. Called Sort of Trust. It's like whoever's like, it's the counter programming at like some different independent studio.
There we go. Yeah, kind of, like how China took down Sony when
Yeah, it's just like that.
the interview. It's funny because shortly before I came on, I texted my friend Max, who's in Los Angeles. We were chatting about other things, and I said he's a wonderful conspiracy nut. I love it. So I asked him what his favorite one is. Oh yeah, no, we all are. And he started talking about the JFK conspiracy, and I can't help but wonder, like this. From the Midwest all the way to LA, there's just so many places for those texts to get intercepted. And I just told him we were about to go on. So somebody was tapping very easily. I just gave him a blueprint.
Yeah, obviously it was.
Thanks, Scott.
The CIA now we're finally on their radar.
Scott sent the flare up with that one, and they.
Hey, it's good to have new listeners.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny today though. So we're speaking on Thursday, July 18th today. And so this morning on Facebook, I did answer a comment by Robbie Graham, who in the past we've discussed how he may have been in trouble with the CIA.
Right.
And he tagged his friend Matthew Alford,
Okay.
who is the other guy who wrote that conspiracy book.
Okay.
About that. The screen was.
Why don't we give some background on that for
all
those
right.
not familiar?
Okay, and so this is from an earlier episode, but that in particular episode, Robbie and Matthew Alford, and they're both like academics in the UK. They were looking into this case of a particular Hollywood screenwriter who was working on a certain kind of like manuscript about the CIA, and he was in contact with like the CIA liaison to Hollywood. Like the CIA has a liaison to Hollywood because they're always in different movies and stuff. They're always represented in different ways.
Yeah.
And in some movies they're portrayed positively, like in Jack Ryan and Sum of All Fears and all Hunt for Red October and stuff. And some they're portrayed very, like the bad guys, like Will Smith in Enemy of the State.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so this, he was the liaison from the government who was trying to make them look good. Anyway, so this writer's working on a particular a screenplay, and it gets finished, and then he disappears. And they don't find him for a year. And when they find him, it looks like he just ran his car off the side of the road. But funny, the manuscript that was in his car when he left his last meeting is no longer there. And also his hands are removed.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So they did a whole investigation on that. They wrote an article for The Guardian in London, and we talked about it on our podcast. We wrote a song about it called The Man Who Knew Too Much. And one of the authors, Matthew Alford, he had an article today about government sponsorship of different atrocities across the world. And so I commented on it. And then anyway, I probably commented on something where two people who were on CIA watch lists We're doing it. So that's probably why your internet's messed up. Wendy.
So
I'm
basically,
sorry.
we put on the Hollywood lights on the roof, announcing that we're going to be talking about conspiracy
Now
theories.
showing.
Everyone's onto us, and so if we lose, more technical things here, we know.
It's
We
our
know why,
fault.
guys. Thank you for setting, waving the flags for us. Now.
Well, where do you guys sit on conspiracy theories?
Well, first, I do want to chime in because I heard interestingly, recently, I should say, maybe not interestingly, but Chris Pratt was giving an interview, and he talks about how the FBI welcomes him anytime he comes into a new town, a new city. He'll have like gift baskets waiting for him in his hotel room because he played Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec, a guy that just wanted to be in the FBI so much.
Yeah.
And he made it seem like a fun and cool thing.
Aw,
and
that's
so
cool.
it's cool, but also they must be tracking him to some degree. Like, how do they know what his hotel room is
my
or
God,
that he's even
right.
coming to town?
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's like, it's nice, but unsettling.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, the Department of Homeland Security knows where we all are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, at all times. And so, and of course, we give them that with our phone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't a conspiracy. This is real. I was listening to another podcast by a guy named Neil Strauss. He wrote The Dirt, the biography of Motley Crue,
Yeah.
that they just made into a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
And so he's got a podcast called To Live and Die in L.A., and it's about a very recent disappearance of an aspiring actress type thing. And so anyway, as they're trying to find out what happened to her, they're using, they get the information of Google that tells them exactly where she was or where her phone was.
Sure.
Like every 5 minutes for months. So they can just find that.
Yeah.
Like-
the pings.
That's some good battery life.
Yeah. Well, no, but they were just talking like, oh yeah, well, no, Google knows where you are every,
Oh, right, yeah,
every
sure.
5 minutes.
Because we all have our phones charged and
And they're always
tracking
on
us.
and they're with us.
Yeah. I just think of the first season of Serial. They talk about, where did this girl disappear, and they
yeah.
can track the cell phone tower pings. And that was years ago, so it's
Yeah.
got to be way more advanced now.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
amazing.
Except for Yelp. I was Yelping things in Las Vegas in February, and Yelp still thinks I'm in Las
Oh
Vegas.
yeah, I have some apps like that too.
Like
that-
every time, like I've Yelped things closer to where I've been maybe a dozen times since then, and but still every time I log into Yelp, it's like, "Are you looking for vegetarian restaurants in Las Vegas, Nevada?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "No."
I have a similar problem with Grubhub because I ordered something when I was in Chicago. It's from an Italian restaurant, and now I keep getting the emails that are like, "Because you liked Salvatore's, you might like," and then there's all these delicious pictures of food in Chicago that I could, should be
Right.
ordering. Like, no, I can't get that.
Well, I guess the moral of the story of that is, guys, the tinfoil hats are not necessary.
Oh, okay.
Because we,
Scott, you can remove yours.
yeah, take off your tinfoil
I do it for the
hat.
fashion.
Well, it is a good look on you.
Because we've already given freely away our location
Absolutely.
information, and all the government has to do is request it from Google or Facebook, and they'll get it.
Well, don't forget now, recently, there's that new app that everybody's been using on Facebook to
Oh,
prematurely
yes.
age themselves. Because, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to do that?
I mean, first of all, I'm too vain to do it. I have no desire. Like, I saw some gray hairs in my beard the other day,
No.
and I was trying to convince myself it was sunscreen.
Oh,
I'm like,
my.
it's obviously just sunscreen, people.
Well, everybody's been talking about how to use the app. There's the terms include like we can use your picture for anything we want, basically. Just kind of like all the other social media apps that we have.
Well, and that's right. And it's funny that actually the Democratic Party yesterday, they issued a warning to all people they told everybody who works for the Democratic Party not to use FaceApp.
What?
Because in 2016, the Democratic Party was hacked. And so those emails came in and they were eventually that's how we learned that John Podesta, Bill Clinton's former chief of staff, had a meeting scheduled with Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 was because I think that hack was worth it just for that
There you
email. But we're going to talk more about Tom DeLonge conspiracy theories in a little bit. But they specifically said because the development of that particular app was Russian.
Okay.
They're trying to forward the entire. We're going with the Russian conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That it's any kind of facial information you send now is going to be used by the Russians.
Well, right. And I mean, now they know what we're all going to look like.
When we're
old. So like that's critical information.
You know, I think that the results of that app though are
disturbing.
It's disturbing because they're
They look real.
spectacular.
Yes.
When you look at those pictures, you're like, holy crap, that's really
Yeah.
good.
And you compare that to when you see, hey, this kid went missing in 1980 so and so.
Right.
Here's our projected what they look like now. It's not nearly as good as what we're seeing on this app.
No, the people who do this app need to get into something
Positive.
right. But they need to get into like profiler work and stuff like
Yeah.
that immediately because it is fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what scared me about it was that before I was familiar with the fact that there is an app doing such things, a couple people posted pictures of themselves in my Facebook feed, and they're, you know how you have a lot of acquaintances that you
Yeah.
don't necessarily see very often.
Yes.
And I was just kind of scrolling as you do. And I'm like, oh gosh, wow, that person's looking rough. Like, woo. And it happened to me, 2 or 3 times before I started. Then I realized that was the
I
app.
got to make more regular contact with these people.
Right.
Or just delete them and like, okay, if I haven't seen them in that long.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, my friends are aging really terribly.
Yeah. Well, we're that age though too, when all of a sudden you look at somebody, people start looking old.
Yeah.
Which is why I have no desire to use the face
I
app
know, I
to
don't
age
wanna-
myself. Forget it.
No.
I got a mirror for that. Yeah.
Also, I use facial, Face ID to open my phone.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you use facial moisturizer, so you will not have that many wrinkles someday.
I did use facial moisturizer after I shaved today. There's no shame in that game.
But you use the face recognition for your phone.
I
to
use facial
unlock
recognition.
it.
And so now people are saying that Face App, they own every single picture in your phone if you give them access to it. Do they also have access to the 1,000 photos that Apple took of my face to develop the Face ID?
Oh, interesting.
Because that would be a thing. Like now they have detailed pictures of all these people. Is this a new way to develop a way into the next generation of facial recognition technology?
Well, I was thinking, what if somebody who's that age now and resembles your likeness that they fabricate committed a crime, and then they tag like, oh, that's Mike Huberty.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's just somebody
who looks like he was an old man.
It looks like future you.
Well, I think that's already going to happen with the deep fake stuff.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's so scary.
So if you guys don't know what deep fake stuff is, it's using the same kind of technology they use in the Face app, and I'm sure you guys have seen. Just log onto Facebook, and one of your friends will have a picture of them as an old person, and so you'll see what we're talking about because it's spectacular.
It is amazing.
and it looks real, and you're like, holy crap!
it's a little too convincing.
I thought this person looked bad now. So deep fake is where you can take someone else's face and put it on a different actor. Face off. We don't make enough Nicolas Cage and John Travolta jokes on this show, I think.
Nice.
But the thing is, so you could take, as long as they have enough pictures to use the AI to create that fake face over the other actor, you can make anybody look like they're doing anything. And they've been doing this with pornography. They've been taking
man.
They've been taking like famous actresses' faces and putting them into like on the face of porno stars.
Sure.
So it looks like it's the actual actress doing it. And it's not perfect. And I did it for research for this episode.
There we go.
I had
Very
to
good of you,
watch
Mike.
it. I mean, I only used one eye. So the other eye would not be perverted. But you're watching it and you're like, it's not perfect.
But it's good enough.
Nice.
It's good enough for today. No, no, but really, it looks really
It does.
good. Like deep fakes are coming,
The
guys.
scary
Yeah.
thing was the example they made with, I think it was President Obama talking, and they just had him saying something that he would never say. you
Yeah,
know, and
Jordan
it-
Peele was doing the voice.
Oh, okay, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
an impersonator doing the voice, but then they had, obviously there's so much footage of him speaking.
Right.
They have virtually every facial,
Yeah.
every moment of every expression. So it just recreated it, and that was scary to me because it's when you see video of the president speaking, you
Just assume.
do
correct.
because that's how it's been for our whole lives until now.
Yeah. Well, it looks a lot better than this only did one pilot on MTV though, but it was developed by a guy from Madison from The Onion, Scott Dickers. It was called Virtual Bill.
Okay.
And it was a computer generated Bill Clinton. And like a comedy with a computer-generated Bill Clinton, Virtual Bill.
Okay.
And it only ran for one episode, and it was pretty cheesy, like 1990s computer generated. But it's not even Toy Story level of computer, CGI. But today, with deepfake, you wouldn't even need the kind of processor and stuff like that they had back then. You could do this on a fairly, like, not even supercomputer or anything to do it.
Yeah,
so we could have virtual Obama. You don't really need virtual Donald Trump. He'll just say whatever he wants to anyway. Yeah. Like, you don't have to put words in his mouth. But
there's a very unusual version of The Shining that is slowly being released on YouTube now in bits, and it is The Shining, the classic 1975 Kubrick film. Speaking of Kubrick, we'll get back to him later in this episode. But starring Jim Carrey. So they put Jim Carrey's face on top of Jack Nicholson's performance,
man.
and it's trippy.
Well,
Jim
weird.
Carrey should be doing something because he hasn't done anything in a while. So I guess this is the best thing we can ask for. But deepfakes are going to change conspiracy theories because then we can have video footage of someone.
Yeah,
They can
proof. Yeah.
and they can just say that's not me, and then the conspiracy of well, what are they hiding from us? That they claim that was a deep fake, but it was really them.
You can basically undo anything that you've said that's on record and accuse it of being a fake.
and blame it on the Russians. Basically, you can just say, well, you know who did it? Russians.
The bad guy.
Yeah, they're back. They're just a convenient, they're a convenient bad guy.
And we can blame Stranger Things for that, of course.
Probably. Yeah. It's all that 1980s nostalgia that's making us scared. We're gonna have to listen to that Sting Rusky song again to realize that we're all just one people who just want to get along, man.
And this is Yakov Shmirov's time to come back. He's relevant again.
He could write.
Yes.
In Putin's Russia. Okay. So speaking of favorite conspiracy theories and everything, let's talk a little bit about the new movie Sword of Trust from director Lynn Shelton. She did a really good movie called Hump Day, which,
That sounds great.
just watch it. It's funny. It's a funny one. There's a style of movie called mumblecore. And it's very subtle. The humor is more subtle, and the actors don't act like Zach Galifianakis or anything like. Right, the jokes come from not understanding any of the line. But it's who did the guy that was in Safety Not Guaranteed?
Oh,
And he had a show on HBO. Duplass, Mark Duplass, and the Duplass brothers, they do that kind of mumblecore, kind of where nothing too outrageous happens and none of the actors act outrageous. It's a more subtle and subdued form of comedy. And so that's what kind of Lynn Shelton, this director, specializes in.
Okay.
And so this particular film is about a couple that finds a Civil War sword. They inherit it from their grandfather who dies. And they take the sword to a antique shop owner played by Mark Maron, and he tries to find the best value for it. And then he stumbles into this online world of conspiracies that this is the sword that proves that the South actually won the war. And there's and this is fictional, obviously. And there's a group, because I was trying to find if there really was a group of Civil War truthers out there. I'm like, are there people who really because first of all, if the conspiracy is that the South really won the war, they've done a really good job of hiding it.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job all the way through Reconstruction. And the fact that, that so much poverty is centered down there that, really worked. But either way, but that's the idea of the comedy, is that he goes into this world of Southern conspiracy theorists, hoping to find the best price for the sword. And then we were at South by this year. Scott, you got to work at the red carpet, right?
And just real quick, that's the South by Southwest Film Festival.
Yes,
that you're referring to.
Yep, during film.
and yeah, it's always abbreviated SXSW. So if you ever hear about a festival and called that, that's what it actually how you say it.
Somebody tries to say it like Sexum.
Yeah. And actually, Wendy was my wonderful camera assistant on this one. So we will have a little bit of video to show, but also, in addition to working for the International Screenwriters Association, while I was down there and interviewing these people asking typical writing and filmmaking questions, I thought, well, let's get a see you on the other side question in to each actor and person I could talk to as well, and find out what their favorite conspiracy theories were.
Yeah. So let's listen to him.
All right, so here we go. At the South by Southwest Film Festival, we first met up with writer-director Lynn Shelton, who you might know from Laggies or Hump Day, alongside Mark Maron, who you definitely know as a stand-up comic turned actor who is really known for his TV show Maron and Glow, as well as being the host of the very popular podcast WTF.
Well, I don't want to say it because it's revealed in the movie. Okay. One of the characters and yeah, it's a good reveal, so I don't want to give it away.
Yeah. Well, for me, personally, which one do I find interesting? Yeah. I'm old school. I think the Book of Revelation is probably the biggest one to worry about. That conspiracy is being enacted on purpose and dubious, I think. Doesn't have to end that way.
Now, improv comic Timothy Paul.
This is a conspiracy theory movie. Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory of your own?
Oh my God, religion.
Mark Maron had your answer too.
Did he really? Okay, I get to choke him in the movie, so that was fun.
In the next clip, you'll hear from two great comedy actresses. The first you'll hear is Michaela Watkins, who has been in New Girl and Trophy Wife and Transparent, but really is best known for her starring role in the Hulu series Casual. She'll be joined by Julian Bell, who has been in all sorts of things lately, including Rough Night, 22 Jump Street, Office Christmas Party, but perhaps she's best known as being that wacky coworker in the Comedy Central series Workaholics.
God, yes. But
that anyone who's dead is alive. I just want to believe that no one's ever died and that cemeteries are just really cool parks.
I think we're all going to find out that sugar and raw meat is like really good for you.
Stand-up comedian Whitmer Thomas.
I don't know, my favorite conspiracy, I don't know, moon landing, classic. Stanley Kubrick directed it. I don't believe it, but I like it.
Veteran actor Toby Huss has over 140 credits to his name, but perhaps he's best known for his voice work, annoying Hank Hill as both Hank Hill's dad and his neighbor Con in the TV series King of the Hill.
I like this one that they were talking about because I didn't know if it was real or not. Then I checked on the internet, and I don't necessarily think there's a lot of realness to it, but I think there should be. I think it's a great idea. So maybe this is ground zero for this conspiracy to really start. Let's hope.
So there you go. Kind of what you're getting at is maybe this isn't a conspiracy theory that exists yet, but maybe this is the impetus that people will start to talk about it online and be like, hey, this kind of checks out.
The danger of writing a script like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know how, when Toby says, well, let's hope. I don't know if you should hope.
He's like, I think it's a great one. Let's get it started. Well, he was on King of the Hill. He probably lives in Austin, so there'd be Texan support for that. But up here,
it will rise again.
Right. I think it's funny that, number one, we really got everybody off guard there.
Yes.
A little bit.
Nobody else in this line was asking that question.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, a lot of people, you could tell, were not prepared.
No, I don't know,
for that question.
It's like they just bring out the classic smug religion, kind of thing. Thank you. It's not the Dark Ages anymore, Richard Dawkins. But no, that's great. And so I love the fact that somebody actually came up with a real one, the moon landing.
Oh, yes.
Particular, and I want to get to that. But before we, leave sort of trust, I want to talk a little bit about there were conspiracies about the Civil War, even real ones, or at least ones that people thought were real, even if they weren't necessarily related to the South actually winning the Civil War. And something I only heard about for the first time when we were doing research for this particular episode was something called the Dahlgren Affair.
Okay.
And so it's an incident in the Civil War. There's a failed Union raid on Richmond, Virginia on March 2nd, 1864. So we're already getting near the end of the war. And the Union does a raid on Richmond, hoping to take the capital, and it doesn't work out. And so the raid's commanding officer, his name is Ulrich Dahlgren, which even for 1860s, standards or whatever, that's a crazy name. That's a name, that's a 14th century name, I think. And he's going in there to, like, if he's going to raid Richmond, Virginia, and then he gets killed outside of Richmond near the King and Queen Country Courthouse trying to free Union prisoners. And so a little kid named William Littlepage discovers his body, looks through his pockets for a pocket watch. So William Littlepage is going to rob Ulrich Dahlgren.
A young little thief.
Right. And and a guy named Ulrich Dahlgren, like, you're supposed to find like a scroll or something.
Yeah.
Like that's like a character you kill in a D&D game. Instead, he finds a pocketbook and 2 folded papers. He turns them over to his teacher, who's a captain in the Confederate Virginia Home Guard, and he examines the papers, and he says that they contain signed orders from the Union Army to assassinate Jefferson Davis.
Whoa. Okay.
So that's what gets put into the Southern newspapers. And it's kind of like outrages the South. That this idea that the Northerners were going to come in and just assassinate their president, like not defeat them on the battlefield, but go in and try to win the war. It's like killing the head vampire, and then all the other vampires just, either they turn back into they turn all into smoke or whatever.
Or glitter.
Yeah, or glitter, depending on which vampire movie you're watching. And they assassinate Jefferson Davis. And so people get outraged. And, President Lincoln, he hears about it. He's like, it's a forgery. It's not like, we didn't really try to do assassination. It was just a raid. The North denies it. And so it's this idea that the conspiracy was that they, once they found the bodies, and this captain decided to try to do a propaganda. Like he tried to create Southern propaganda by spreading the rumor that the North was trying to kill Jefferson Davis. And he knew it would, set people off. And so that's why he reported that. So, we don't know the truth of it. We just know that, there was that stuff on Union Stationery that said they should kill Jefferson Davis. And, I thought that was interesting because either it's a conspiracy by the South or a conspiracy by the North, and they're both denying it. They're both denying it. So someone's lying here, but
they're both weaponizing it.
Right. They're both weaponizing the information and trying to use it to to further their cause. One, that how dare the North try to assassinate the president and stuff like that, even though we know what happens to Abraham Lincoln afterwards. And there's tons of conspiracies about what happened to Abraham Lincoln.
Oh gosh, I bet.
So this is an example of something real that happened, and it's a conspiracy that either on both sides that was used during the war, and for propaganda to make people think a certain thing.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about how conspiracy theories are stupid or whatever, and the people who believe in them are idiots, here's a real one that was used, in warfare, during the time that they talk about in Sword of Trust. And I haven't seen the movie. You guys did. It came out on Friday, so
yeah, very small opening so far. I think it's IFC Films is putting it out, and there's only in 2 theaters when it first opened, and hopefully it'll launch bigger. And sometimes they put things out there just to get a little bit of screen time, get the press.
Sure.
A lot of these guys have been doing the late night talk shows lately, so that when they now bring it onto their channel, IFC channel, people will be ready to tune in. So it could be just a pre-marketing campaign. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it stays in theaters because I'd like to see it.
Yeah, me
big.
too.
Yeah, I want to see it too. And it took me a while to warm up to Marc Maron, but I love him now. Like, I think he's great. And one of the reviews actually even said that they think that it's the best performance of the year.
Wow,
that's
all
awesome.
Right.
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, you mean the dude from WTF? Like, all right, let's see it. So I can't wait to see the movie, and it looks good. And that was, thank you for asking those questions, Scott. That was great to sneak that in there on them.
Well, yeah, it was catching flat-footed. But so it's interesting because while those guys are not, those are actors and filmmakers that aren't down the rabbit hole like we like to go. They all do talk about little various aspects of known conspiracy theories. There, the religion aspect. Of course, powerful people have been using religion as means to keep the working class people down in different ways throughout all of history. Even kings or whatnot saying that, well, God told me that you should do this. That kind of like just abuse of power. You got Watkins, who's talking about what food is actually good for you. Because, does the food lobby want to just market a certain thing to get certain sales? Or maybe the pharma industry wants us to eat unhealthy so that now we got to take cholesterol medication and whatnot.
Or the government is feeding us
Exactly.
certain chemicals.
Oh yeah, and then
to-
all the fluoride paranoia, like it can protect your.
Well, I mean, the food stuff's already been proven. I mean, the fact that the people that designed the food pyramid that we grew up with.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were younger than, if you're older than 25 years old, we grew up with a food pyramid that basically
a food
said,
pyramid. It's not even a pyramid anymore.
Yeah, they basically said like, just go kill a cow, eat as much of it as you can.
and carbs are the best thing
Oh
in
yeah,
the world.
their foundation, lots of
Right.
bread.
I mean, Amy Schumer has that great routine where she just goes, remember bread, ladies? Because it was a thing you could eat. And now, when's the last time, I think about that every time I even have a sandwich. I'm like,
I know.
shouldn't I be eating more protein
It's
here?
a guilty pleasure
Are
thing.
these empty
Bread.
calories?
Yeah, or it's like, think about how much bread you used to eat before the meal even came out of the restaurant.
I mean, some of us still do.
All right. The Olive Garden, I used to have like 6 breadsticks before like the meal even started.
Oh, yeah. So
and
good.
Right. And now I'd be like, hold on a second. That's my death staring at me. That's face app on a plate.
Yeah. And then Julian Bell finally, she talks about death being her conspiracy theory, which is weird. At first, it makes you think of like, is Elvis really dead? Did they fake different assassinations? But I like her idea that death itself is a conspiracy.
Right,
That
yeah.
nobody actually dies, but this is this threat of death that might affect the living somehow.
That's a very
Which is cool.
That's a very transformative idea there because she's just like, what if death only happens because we think it's going to happen?
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, like what if we just never thought about it and then it never happened to us?
Let's try.
Well, going on, one of the most interesting things that I found when I was looking for different Civil War conspiracy theories is the idea, and this is also going with the religious aspect, is that the Roman Catholic Church might have been behind Lincoln's assassination.
Oh, wow. I have not heard this one.
Whoa.
Okay, this is I've not
The
heard
Pope
this
said
one.
nobody else will wear a hat as big as mine.
So there's RogerJNorton.com. This guy's got some great stuff on Lincoln assassination theories on his site. Some of them seem kind of reasonable. Number one, that Andrew Johnson, the vice president, might have been involved with Booth. Now, Johnson was from the opposing party. This is back in the day when the person who got second place became the vice president.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it used to be. Okay, hold on. Imagine if Hillary Clinton was Donald Trump's vice president. It would like.
Oh my gosh.
It would.
I want to live in this alternate reality.
I was gonna say it would be a White House full of lizard people. But just imagine that, like if they had to appear at events together and
They had to
stuff like
both
that.
live in the White House.
They would have to come to work every day.
They draw a line.
Yeah.
In the White House, like, don't cross that line onto my side.
Yeah. Oh man. So Andrew Johnson being involved with Booth, and there's a whole bunch of things with this idea. There was a group of people who Booth conspired with in order to get into Ford's Theater and shoot the president. In fact, that was even a popular conspiracy theory at the time. The doctor who took care of Booth's injuries,
Samuel Mudd.
like he went to prison.
Yeah.
For the idea that they said he was part of the conspiracy theory.
Wow.
I remember when I was a kid watching a movie about it, and now I don't know if this is true, but the term,
Your name is Mudd.
that comes from him, right?
I've heard that.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know if that's really there, but it's at least there in my head now.
I mean, it does make sense.
Right,
Kind of.
because you helped out the guy that killed the president. You're going down. Your name is Mudd.
You're in deep trouble.
Yeah. And so this idea that a group of people had conspired, because how else would they get to the most protected man in the world just when he's watching a play? So, okay, let's get back to the Catholic Church. And this is coming from RogerJNorton.com. He's done the research, and thanks, Raj. In 1886, an ex-priest by the name of Charles Chiniquy wrote a book titled 50 Years in the Church of Rome, which portrayed the assassination of Lincoln as a Catholic grand conspiracy. Chiniquy maintained that Jefferson Davis had offered $1 million if someone would kill the author of the bloodshed. Chiniquy wrote that the money could be offered, but that, quote, the Jesuits alone could select the assassins, train them, and show them a crown of glory in heaven, unquote. Booth was the tool of the Jesuits. He was corrupted and directed by the Vatican. In 1906, Chiniquy said the president, Abraham Lincoln, was assassinated by the priests and Jesuits of Rome. In 1856, Lincoln had defended Chiniquy in court. so when Lincoln was a lawyer, he actually defended this guy that wrote the book about him, saying that the Vatican killed Lincoln. Chiniquy had quarreled with his bishop and then was sued for slander by one of the bishop's friends. And then a morals charge was also involved. The case was heard May 20th to 22nd, 1856 in Urbana, Illinois. And Lincoln arranged for a compromise settlement, but Chiniquy interpreted the settlement as a victory over the church, and he said that he felt some Jesuits held Lincoln responsible for the settlement. Then somebody else. 1897, Thomas M. Harris, a member of the 1865 Military Commission that was looking into the death of Abraham Lincoln, he wrote a book called Rome's Responsibility for the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And there's like several other books all between the late 1890s and the early 1900s. Democracy Under Siege, the Jesuits' attempt to destroy the popular government of the United States, the true story of Abraham Lincoln's death, the suppressed truth about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln by Burke McCarty in 1924. The opening sentence to Burke's book is, "In all the bloody history of the papacy, perhaps in no one man, as in Abraham Lincoln, was there concentrated such a multitude of reasons for his annihilation by that system."
Big talk.
Yeah, so what's going on here? Like, this idea that the papacy was involved in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, that they were in favor of slavery, and that's why they considered Lincoln one of their enemies.
Targets, yeah.
And so that's what I thought was like the most interesting conspiracy theory, because you never think the Pope would be behind the assassination. You think you're a Southern separatist or somebody who was mad that their brother got killed in the war or something like that. But not the Pope, who's going to be like, "We are going to kill Abe." And so I guess religion is one of our favorite conspiracies.
That's right, and there were multiple people that were executed in connection to the Lincoln assassination, including the first woman ever executed on U.S. soil was executed.
Oh, I didn't realize that she was the first one.
I believe so. Yeah,
and well, maybe the first when it was the United States, because like the Salem witch trials killed some chicks.
Oh, sure.
Killed some chicks. See, I just flowed over that really sensitive there, Mike.
but we can blame that on the monarchy in that era. Yeah.
That's right. Stupid English.
And apparently the phrase "My name is Mudd" first appeared before Samuel Mudd was born. So that is, but I believed it too. I had heard that and believed it as well.
We probably saw the same movie or whatever.
Yeah, probably.
But that kind of conspiracy theory, like people do, why was the president killed? So just as many conspiracy theories about Abraham Lincoln that they had in the 1860s as we had about John F. Kennedy in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And not even that different when you think about how things are the same. People talked about LBJ, and even the movie JFK, directed by Oliver Stone, suggests that LBJ was complicit in the death of John F. Kennedy. So that's not that different than saying that Andrew Johnson was also involved, the vice president at the time was involved in the death of Abraham Lincoln. So I just think that, 100 years apart, and they always talk about the similarities between Kennedy and Lincoln.
Of course, yeah.
Like Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy.
Yeah,
Kennedy
that's
had
right.
a secretary named Lincoln. Oh,
yeah.
They both had vice presidents named Johnson. Oh.
Yeah, but there is the list is huge though.
I know.
It's like
it's fun to read. Yeah.
So those are just a couple of different things on Southern conspiracy theories, but we also wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about one of the big ones from the past 50 years for this gigantic anniversary that's happening on Saturday, and that is the 50th anniversary of humans landing on the moon, or at least humans telling other people that we landed on the moon.
It was the release date is what we're celebrating here of when all these Americans watch this greatest film ever shown.
Right. It's funny. First of all, watching all these moon landing retrospectives on television and seeing that on the news and the videos on YouTube and stuff is they keep on repeating the one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And even as a kid, I was like, don't those things mean the same thing? Right? But he just misspoke it because he misspoke because he was too excited.
Because it was supposed to be for a man.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he flubs the biggest line of all time.
I think we forgive him for that.
Send it back up. Let's do a take two.
That's why I think it's real.
That's all you need.
Sure.
Because why wouldn't they just correct that? He'd be like, one small step for man.
Authenticity, Mike.
Neil Neil, the line is a man. Oh yeah, sorry, take two. You know, like they make just
Yeah, but it's more authentic because a real human messes up, so that makes
That's true.
the film seem even more.
and he's crapping his pants because
Impromptu.
he's looking at the monsters on the moon and stuff like that. Or maybe the Nazis came out of their moon base.
There we go.
Oh my gosh.
They're up there mining cheese.
No, but that was so I loved hearing that each time because each time I'm like, yeah, I just remember being a kid, and then I asked my dad that, and he's just like, well, it's a great line, boy. Just don't worry about it.
Just roll with it.
Just let it go. So I got gaslit by my father.
Ouch.
Okay, but so the first time it really comes out that people think that that we didn't really land on the moon comes out in this 1974 book, and it's written by somebody who actually who worked for the company that developed the Saturn V rocket.
Oh, wow.
And so his name is-
credibility there.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't really know anything about rockets. They hired him as a tech. they hired him to head their technical writing division. Now he was a Navy officer and he had a BA in English.
So he wasn't a rocket scientist, really.
He truly was not a rocket scientist. He was just a guy that probably was good at editing. Right? So he's a tech writer. And so he writes this book, We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion Swindle. No, actually, it comes out in 1976. And this is where he goes in to say that, he worked for the company that built the Saturn V, and he believes that it was faked. He thinks that there's no way that we actually could have gotten men to the moon in time, because the first Apollo mission in 1967, it blows up on the launch pad, and three
Right.
astronauts die. And, he says that, how can 2 years later
Suddenly.
we actually get to the moon? And we were joking about this before, but in 1980, the Flat Earth Society, and so this is already coming from a place of non-science as much as you can.
What?
What? The Earth's not round?
Spoiler alert.
The thing is that for a little bit I can see why people could believe that in the Flat Earth Society, because I go back to when one of my friends asked, space, fact or fiction?
Oh, well, you're talking about
but just the idea that
somebody was smoking the wacky tobacco.
right. But what I mean is he's like, have you ever seen space? You're like, well, no, you see the sky, but he's like, what if?
Have you ever seen a molecule, man?
Well, that's the same kind of thing. And so when it's everything based on trust.
Things you talk about when you're high.
Well, really though, it's this idea that do you really believe every single thing that you are taught? And so I'm not saying that the Flat Earth Society is correct or that NASA's lying to us, but I'm saying you can see why people, if they can't touch it, feel it, see it for themselves, they might have some kind of doubt. But here's what they say. They say that the moon landings were actually shot in Hollywood. So no, they weren't shot. They were shot at Area 51, based on a script by Arthur C. Clarke and directed by Stanley Kubrick. And I can see why that they thought Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick,
because would be a good tandem.
They worked together on 2001, and that was the first time you had really awesome special effects in a movie. That's the first time you had really awesome space
effects, yeah,
like special effects in a movie. Because before then, it really looked like a piece of plastic or whatever flying through, and like stars in the background that would shake a little bit or whatever. And in 2001, you're like, this looks like how we imagine space to be. And that's another reason why I can think why people think it's fake. Because our idea of space doesn't come from space itself. It comes from images were shown. 1978, the movie Capricorn 1 comes out. Capricorn 1, the plot of that movie is that they faked a landing on Mars. So this is already a plot of a science fiction film that a lot of people have seen, that I remember seeing as not in 1978 because I'd been 2, and I'd been like, what's that? But in this era, in the late 1970s, people hate the government. Like, even if you think about people hate the government now, in the late 1970s, Nixon gets kicked out of office. He's lying to people. They're in the middle of, Jimmy Carter's recession. and what's happening in the late 1970s, where people are waiting in line for gas.
Yeah.
And gas goes from 25 cents a gallon to like $1.50 or whatever. Like like everybody's life changes, and everybody blamed the government for it. So this is just another easy way to get angry about something, to think that we didn't really land on the moon,
right?
And that so why would it be good for NASA to fake it, especially we get to July 20th, 1969?
Especially for that date specifically?
But even 1969.
Oh, okay. I know it's all about the space race.
Right. And Kennedy said in his initial thing about the space race, he challenges Soviets. Who's going to get to the moon first? And let's do it by the end of the decade.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And he says it he's like, we got it by the end of the 1960s, we're going to get to the moon. And that's the challenge he makes. And then
we were in the red zone.
Right.
It's time to go.
And and the Soviets had a failed, like they couldn't get their program to work. Even though they started off kicking butt, like the Soviets landed a rocket on the moon in 1959. So they got there 10 years before we did, but just couldn't get there with a person.
Yeah, they had fleets of dogs up there. Yeah.
And we had this, and like after they launched Sputnik, we try to launch Vanguard in the late 1950s. It fails. Our space program fails. And then 1967, our astronauts die on the launch pad, fails. And then 2 years later, one small step for man.
Yeah.
Like it's there. And so people just, this guy comes out with this book. It's a big swindle. Even though NASA did the full accounting and it was only $25 billion. It wasn't $30 billion.
Oh.
So, I mean what's $5 billion among friends?
Yeah. Right.
If your friends are Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel, right? But, this continues. And now in the present era, like this gets even more of a, because people love conspiracy theories more than ever. And we have YouTube.
Oh, yeah. So, everybody's got a mouthpiece, just like us.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Like we're talking about it. Like you used to have to find distribution for your project or talking about it. Sure. Now you just, you can make a little movie about how you think the moon landing's fake. And, people go into it, they say, all right, well, if they actually were on the moon and they're taking pictures, then how come there's no stars in the background?
Oh, right. Yeah.
When's the last time you guys took a picture at night?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a thing in film called the contrast ratio, where the brightest thing on film can only be 100 times brighter than the darkest thing, and everything below that threshold is just black. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah. So that's why when you see the beautiful big moon and you want to take a picture with your cell phone, and then you take a picture and you're like, okay, the moon just looks like a dot, and there's nothing else in the sky.
It always looks like crap.
Yeah. Horrible.
Like you're looking at the moon, you're like, I gotta show the world this, and then you do, and you're like, oh, it feels stupid.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I probably should have just been enjoying that moment with my eyes and not wasting
a quarter
time.
on asphalt,
Right. We're also in 1969. We're coming to end. Are we going to make Kennedy's deadline? And it's a race with the Soviets that we don't want to lose. And also, we're already losing the Vietnam War at the time.
Yeah.
It's super
Some
unpopular.
national pride.
And I mean, that was one of the things that got Nixon elected, because Lyndon Johnson, because Vietnam was so unpopular, he's like, I'm not going to run again for president. I'm not even going to bother, because he thought he would just lose. And then, Richard Nixon's like, I'm going to figure out a way to end the war, the peace, with dignity. If that was a certain thing, he was like, we can we can still leave and have a dignified out. Like he promised an out to the American people, and that's one of the reasons he got elected. And so it's this idea that NASA's going to save face, like it's going to save America's face, in the world. And would they, the moon landing, would it be such a great PR thing for the U.S. and make everybody feel so good that, who cares if it's fake? I mean, obviously we care if it's fake.
Right.
But I always thought it was the stupidest of all conspiracy theories, because I can believe that there's people in power who think they know what's best for us. In fact, this is a particular quote that I read, and this is from a NASA manager, the director of mission operations, John C. Harpold. And this isn't in the 1960s. This is in 2003. And this is actually before the Space Shuttle Columbia blew up on re-entry. And he was discussing with one of his employees about, well, what if something happened that they, what if something happened to the shuttle on takeoff and then they can't re-enter the atmosphere without blowing up? What would we do in a situation like this? And he goes, there's nothing we can do if there's damage to the thermal protection system. If it's been damaged, it's probably better not to know. I think the crew would rather not know. Don't you think it would be better for them to have a happy, successful flight and die unexpectedly during entry than to stay on orbit knowing that there was nothing to be done until the air ran out?
That is the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I'm not saying that they knew that this is a conspiracy theory, that they knew that the Space Shuttle Columbia was going to burn up on re-entry. It was such a tragedy. I remember seeing the footage on TV and it was horrible. I'm not saying they knew about it, but even if they did know about it, the director of operations at NASA says, well, we probably wouldn't tell the crew because, how horrible would that be for them just to know they're going to die in the air?
Well, I mean, I see where he's coming from, but it seems like that could be a question that, I don't know, you fill out with your application when you get started or something like that. Like, how do we handle this hypothetical?
Yeah. Right.
And it's an ethical thing that you would hopefully have the choice of making that decision as a crew member, in advance, maybe. I don't know.
And well, this is like going back to the whole space thing idea. It's not that I think that these conspiracy theories are necessarily true. It's just that I can see why people, there's fun conspiracy theories to believe in. David Icke and the lizard people, which isn't even that far off if you think of most people's conspiracy theories about elites. It's just replace lizard people with elites and you have any populist candidate running.
Sure.
Or you just replace lizard people with rich people, and you've got Bernie Sanders' campaign speech in a nutshell. And people sometimes will believe that other people think they know what's best for them, and then will try to control them. And here's a direct example of NASA saying, "We do know what's best for them, and this is what we do if that kind of situation happens." So you can see why people would believe these kind of things. Now, I'm not saying like Pizzagate or whatever, where they think there's molesters in the basement of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C.
That's run by all the Democrats, and
right,
which ends up getting bombed because conspiracy theorists believe it.
Gosh. Yeah, and that's the thing. But you can see why people have a belief in these things, and then how it can be used against them. And, speaking of Pizzagate, this is going to reintroduce the whole thing with now that Jeffrey Epstein is going back to court for, having sex with underage girls.
And like sex trafficking and all kinds of
and this whole thing.
Things.
But that's not just going to affect the Democrats. That's going to affect that's going to affect every rich person in New York.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's connected to both Clinton and Trump.
Right.
So,
there's videos of him and like Donald Trump like checking out girls and like pointing out and stuff like that. It's
rough.
Yeah. You're like, ugh. But and that's just going to fuel more of these fires because well, hey, look, we have a real life convicted pedophile that's not just hanging out with Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, but Prince Andrew from the UK.
Oh, wow.
And he was going over and they were like going to parties together after he got out of prison the first time. So what I'm saying is David Icke is correct. These people are lizards. And we got to do something about it. No, I don't know. We have to do anything about it. Do not take that the wrong way.
Right.
All right.
What I like to say, though, is that I being a ghost lorist, somebody that looks into ghost stories and urban legends, and I love trying to trace back to the truth of where like a little bit of history was real, and then we got this blown out of proportion crazy story. Yeah. So where's the truth at the kernel of these stories? And with the moon landing, you wonder, did at one point in time some government official float the idea of, hey, should we have a backup plan where we have some footage we can cut away to, and maybe that went nowhere other than a conversation.
Maybe it was shot down in the meeting immediately.
Exactly.
Right.
But somehow people have like continued to echo it, and now it's taken on a life of its own. I'm curious about stuff like that.
Oh, I can totally see that as some kind of, they're like, well, it doesn't matter if we actually make it to the moon. Like we're going,
selling
like
it.
we're telling,
we will make it.
We're telling the world we're going to the moon. We're telling the world that our system is better than the Soviet system.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the whole domino theory
High
idea.
Stakes.
That's why they said we were in Vietnam. They said if Vietnam goes communist, then the entirety of Southeast Asia goes communist, and then Japan goes communist. And Japan was our biggest trading partner at the time. So if Japan goes communist, then our entire economy is going to go under. And And so they were using that as a justification to fight the Vietnam War. And if they're actually if we're going to kill people over that justification against fighting the Soviets, are they going to lie about landing on the moon?
Yeah.
It seems like, well, that's even if they lied about it, it's not as bad as like firebombing a village.
Sure. Yes.
That's funny. So the last season of the X-Files opens up with the moon landing being fake. And like the smoking man's like saying looks good kind of thing. It's great.
Nice.
It's great. So the last verdict, moon landing, Scott, real or fake?
Real, but I love the conspiracy theory.
Wendy, Abraham Lincoln killed by the Pope.
I'm going to go with no. But
right.
I do. It is very fascinating.
Yeah.
And Mike, Paul McCartney.
Has he been replaced?
I would like to think that the Paul we have is the same Paul that gave us Let It Be. So I'm going to say that he survived.
Okay.
But I do think that Paul McCartney died sometime between the end of the Beatles and Wings. And whoever the new Paul McCartney is that's responsible for silly love songs and simply having a wonderful Christmas time must be stopped at all costs.
All right, there it is.
We want to thank Scott Marcus from what'syourghoststory.com for helping us out by getting those great quotes and asking some see you on the other side questions at the Sort of Trust red carpet at South by Southwest.
It's always fun to bring a little paranormal funkiness to the red carpet.
All right.
Nicely done.
So when people want to find more about some of your writing, where can they find it?
As you mentioned, what'syourghoststory.com is the place for that.
Perfect. Now, in Sort of Trust, it is about the conspiracy theory that the South really won the war. So we wanted to find a song that was popular during the Civil War. The problem is you don't want to sing a Confederate song during the Civil War. So we wanted to find a tune that was maybe popular on both sides of the Civil War, the Union as well as the Confederate. And so there absolutely was a song that Union soldiers used to sing as well as Confederate soldiers. And it just so happened to be the song that Love Me Tender is based on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an 1861 song called Oralee, and here's Sunspot's version of Oralee. As the blackbird in the spring beneath the willow tree sat and piped, I heard him sing of Oralee. Oralee, Oralee, made with golden hair. Sunshine came along with thee, and swallows in the air. In thy blush the rose was born, music when you spake. Through thine azure eye the morn sparkling seemed to break. Oralee, Oralee, birds of crimson wing, never song have sung to me as in that night sweet spring. Oralee, the bird may flee, the willow's golden hair swing through winter fitfully on the stormy air. Yet if thy blue eyes I see, gloom will soon depart. For to me, sweet Oralee, is sunshine through the heart. winter snow. Sunshine in my face was seen, kissing lips of rose. Oralee, Oralee, take my golden ring. Love and light return with thee, and swallows with the spring. Oralee, Oralee, take my golden ring. Love and light return with thee, and swallows with the spring.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at OthersidePodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
Well, we certainly had a lot of fun talking about conspiracy theories with you guys today, and we'd like to do it personally.
Yeah, I want to hear what your favorite conspiracy is.
And also to see if you can back it up.
Yeah, we want proof.
Yeah, but we want to do that with you guys at the See You on the Other Side Patreon Hangout. Now, we do one of these every month, and it's only for our Patreon members, and we would like to hang out with you in person. In person over the internet. Unless you live in Madison, it's going to be over the internet. But we'd also like to do it at paranormal conventions. Coming up, we're going to be at the Michigan Paranormal Convention in August. We're going to be at the Chicago Paranormal Convention in October. The Menominee, the Mabel Tainter Paracon, it's Menominee, Wisconsin.
Paranomicon.
Paranomicon. It's about an hour away from the Twin Cities. So if you're near the Twin Cities, Chicago, or the UP.
And don't forget Milwaukee.
And the Milwaukee Paranormal Convention on September 14th. So there'll be a lot of chances to hang out in person. We love to meet our patrons. It's one of our favorite things to do. But until then, we can hang out virtually if you decide to join our Patreon community. And where can they do that one?
They can do that at OthersidePodcast.com/donate.
That's right. And so we do a meetup every month. Patrons also get the first versions of the songs that we put out. And we've got lots more fun in store for you guys. And the more Patreons we get, the more cool things we can do. So if you're interested in joining a community of like-minded weirdos, check it out at OthersidePodcast.com/donate.
And we have to give a special shout out to one of our executive producers, Dr. Ned.
Dr. Ned, we love you, brother, and your support has been so important and valuable to us for the past few years. Now, everybody else, Dr. Ned's at the level where he gets a shout out in every single episode. If you would like to be that cool, you can do that at OthersidePodcast.com/donate. Yeah, Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. Oh, yeah. They both had vice presidents named Johnson. Oh. And we want to thank Scott and Marcus from What's Good.
.com.